Now we turn to Bangladesh, where some protests have turned deadly. Multiple casualties have been reported in Bangladesh. At least 3 people have died in Chittagong in the southeast, 1 in Rangpur in the north, and 1 person was killed in the capital, Dhaka. Meanwhile, more than 400 people have been injured from all across the country. Take a look at the situation on the ground.
We demanded rational reformation of the quota system. We did not desire anything else.
The ongoing protests are against Bangladesh's quota system. Let me explain. Every year, they recruit people for government jobs. Now, these are considered safe jobs, jobs that offer assured career growth. So these jobs are highly coveted. Every year, the government releases a list of vacancies, but all the jobs listed are not up for grabs because more than half of them are reserved. 1% of all the jobs are reserved for people with disabilities. 5% are reserved for minority communities. 10% are reserved for women. Another 10% are reserved for people from underdeveloped districts in Bangladesh. So that's 26% of the jobs reserved. But that's not all. The largest reservation is for freedom fighters, the people who fought to liberate Bangladesh from Pakistan back in 1971. 30% of all jobs, all government jobs, are reserved for these people, for their children and their grandchildren. When we add this to the other reservations, the total comes to 56%, meaning 56% of the government jobs in Bangladesh are reserved. They're not open to the general public. And this is why the students are angry. This is why they have been protesting. The quota system had been scrapped in 2018 after similar protests, but now it has returned. Last month, a court reinstated the quotas, and that is what sparked the latest round of demonstrations. This is against various parts of the system, from the percentage of reserved seats to the vacancy rule. What's the vacancy rule? If a reserved job cannot be filled, if the quota candidates fail to clear the requirements or the recruitment tests, the job would be left vacant. It would not be opened up to the general public. That is the rule, even if there weren't enough reserved candidates applying. The vacancy remains, but it's not given to the general public. And remember, these jobs are much sought after. So these wasteful vacancies also riled up the people. They have been protesting for weeks now, even after another court order. The quota reinstatement was paused last week by Bangladesh's Supreme Court. It has put the reservation policy back on hold, at least for a month. But this did little to calm the protesters. In the last 2 days, the situation came to a head when Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina weighed in. She took a dig at the protesters. She used the word Razakar while talking about the protests. And this did not go down well with the protesters because Razakar is a taboo term in Bangladesh. It describes the people who collaborated with Pakistan during the 1971 War of Independence. It effectively means traitors, Razakar. So when the protesters heard this, they were enraged. They took to the streets and chanted slogans. That roughly translates to, I went to ask for my rights and I became a Razakar. The next chant was even more problematic. They're saying we are Razakars, the government has said so. Now, if you remove the second line of this chant, it looks like the protesters are just calling themselves Razakars. And remember, that is taboo in Bangladesh. In fact, it is an insult to the nation's freedom struggle. So you can imagine the reaction. There was a lot of anger from politicians who only heard the first part of the chant. What followed was a wide range of condemnations and threats. But the worst was this. From the General Secretary of Pakistan's ruling party, he said that the party's student wing would make the Razakars pay. Not the police, not the military, but the ruling party's student wing. This threat was issued yesterday, and that's when the violence escalated.
আমরা হচ্ছে ওখানে মিছিল
We were rallying, and suddenly the ruling party student wing attacked us in front of Bijoy Ekattor Hall first.
ওখানে কিছুক্ষণ
Then we were coming towards the Vice Chancellor's house when we were stopped there. The Chhatro League ruling party student supporters again attacked us from behind. They were hitting heads in a targeted way.
ছিল ওখান থেকে ইট মারা শুরু হয়েছে
Bangladesh's Kota protests have entered a violent new phase. No side seems ready to back down and the bodies have started to pile up. We hope that the situation de-escalates and cooler heads prevail.